Hi guys, I promised you a review of the MAS Epoxy products I received 2 weeks ago, and this is it. Or at least it's the first initial review, and we'll get back to that a little later in this video. Seeing as this video's got product names in its title, it's probably gonna get some views from people that aren't familiar with my little channel here on YouTube. So for those people, I want to go ahead and apologize for the mess aboard my boat. I'm currently in the process of selling my house in order to move aboard my boat full time. That's why I've got a lot of projects going on, and that's sort of the root cause of all this mess. Before we get started, I want to thank Peter from blackbearboatingandleisure.com for sending me the free samples that we'll have a look at in just a few minutes. Black Bear Boating and Leisure is a boat building company out of a workshop in Lincolnshire. They design and build 38-foot schooners. Now, the process is quite similar to what Kamau is doing, and I thought his project was really cool. They both use timbers, plywood, fiberglass and epoxy resin to build sailboats. And if I ever get the chance, I would love to go check out Black Bear Boating and Leisure's workshop. That would be amazing. Anyway, let's take a look at the products. Here are the products that Peter sent me. I'm curious, how many of you guys have ever heard of MAS Epoxies? I certainly had never heard of them before trying these products, but it actually turns out that they're a pretty well-known brand. And while knowing that in and of itself is no guarantee of a good product, it still gives me a little bit sort of peace of mind. Epoxy is used in such a variety of ways. Depending on what you're doing, you might be interested in UV resistance, tensile strength, compression strength, hardness, or a number of other metrics. A lot of you guys know me by now, and you know that there's nothing I'd love to do more than to just geek out and do lots of tests on this stuff. Sadly, I don't have access to the equipment to do that right now, and I don't really have the time either, but that's on my list for a future video. What I can tell you about is my personal experience using these products aboard my own boat. So, what MAS Epoxy products have I used? I'm in the process of putting up sealing out in my V-berth, and I'm doing that by adhering strips of oak to the hull using thickened epoxy. And that thickened epoxy consists of flag resin, which is a thick resin, medium hardener, and some silica. And that worked perfect. I've also laid up some fiberglass, and I did that using their low viscosity resin and some medium hardener, and that was awesome. I've also done this little test jig right here, and well, it's just a silly jig I'll use aboard the boat next weekend, so it doesn't really matter, but yeah, there you go. And I've also done some tests. Now, I think most of you guys are probably familiar with West System stuff, so let's do a bit of a comparison between these two brands. Here I've got a sample of cured epoxy from West System, and here I've got a sample of cured epoxy from MAS Epoxies. Now, even if I was blindfolded, I'd still be able to tell these two apart. Why? Well, because of a thing called blushing. All of the sort of traditional crude-based epoxies like West System are prone to blushing to some extent. And what is blushing? It's this sort of waxy residue that builds up on top of cured epoxy. Normally you'd get rid of it with some water, some soap, and a bit of elbow grease. MAS Epoxies, on the other hand, is a member of a newer family of epoxies that don't get blushing. So what causes blushing? Well, apparently according to the internet, it has to do with the shape of the amine molecules. Well, who knew? There's another fun difference between these two families of epoxies, and that's the fact that the newer families, which MAS Epoxies is a member of, cures to a slightly softer, more elastic solid, which allows for deformation and better impact absorption. Another difference between these two brands of epoxies is mix ratio. West Systems is mixed at a 5:1 ratio, whereas MAS Epoxies is mixed at a 2:1 ratio. And at least with my limited cognitive abilities, it's much easier to mix something 2:1 instead of 5:1. And I mean, sure, you can get these pump kits for both brands, but it's my experience that those tend to drip and cause a mess. The third and final difference between these two brands of epoxies that I want to mention in this little video has to do with this stuff, the low viscosity resin from MAS Epoxies. Now, I'm not familiar with a similar product from West System, but it might very well be out there. I was amazed at how much easier it was to wet out fiberglass using the low viscosity resin, but upon taking a look at the specifications, it's not really a mystery why it was so much easier. Now, viscosity is measured in a unit called centipose, and for comparison, 1 centipose is the viscosity of water. Now the low viscosity resin from MAS Epoxies is at 600 centipos, while the 105 resin from West System is at 1000 centipos. So I think that explains why it was so much easier to wet out the fiberglass using the low viscosity resin from MAS Epoxies. Now having said that, I would love to see what using the low viscosity resin does to the physical characteristic of, say, a piece of fiberglass layup. But like I mentioned, that's a test for another video. All in all, I'm very excited about the products from MAS Epoxies. I love the fact that there's no blush, the 2:1 mix ratio, how easy it was to wet out fiberglass using the low viscosity resin, and the fact that the stuff from MAS Epoxies has got much less of an odor than the stuff from West System. Once I've had a chance to run some thorough tests, I'll do a follow-up video. But before ending this video, if you're interested in the UV properties of different kinds of epoxies, there's a link in the description just for you. It's a link to what appears to be a very thorough test of 6 popular brands of epoxies, so go check that out. Okay guys, I guess that's it for this video. See you! Jökull and I hope you've enjoyed this video. To be notified about new content, please click subscribe. If you're new to the channel, I suggest you check out the introduction playlist. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and feel free to leave a comment.